This morning I woke up to some very light rain, which is supposed to subside in a couple of hours. So what I always do is I do I call it the perp walk around my drying projects here in the shop and try to plan out the next day's work based on the fact it'll probably be raining some or a good part of the day. I can do, now there's certain things I can do indoors here. It won't even matter if it's raining. I could work on these fairings. There's some repair work on these fairings. That's part of the Honda project. I have Glenn's stuff just dried up beautifully. Now the problem with this is we're going to be installing some decals on this, and I don't have the tank up to speed yet, so if it continues being lousy out there, I'll get this sanded out. There's a little bit of body work on this side if I remember right, but pretty much that's going to be ready to go. And Vlad's stuff will need one more light sanding, buffing, and the other two parts are still out in the garage. So we have, as we always do, we have a little plan of action of what we can get started on today. But it's just, as you can imagine, it's an overwhelming thing to have this much work. But boy, when I stand back here, it's like looking at the carrots grow or something. This winter, we have painted more stuff, and I think most of it, or all of it really, is of a really nice high quality. So as I look back, yeah, not really disappointed at all. My thought was here, the best thing I can do is get some paint on this and get it drying. And I know there's going to need to be a little bit of body work on this. Not terrible, actually. I shouldn't say terrible. The tank is actually in real good shape. So based on how this is starting to come out, Glenn, if I were you, I'd be starting to look for a title already, because the same thing as what happened with my track bike that became, I went and bought another bike just to get the title, so I could, and you can still have the track bike too. You have the best of both worlds. You can swap parts around even. Anyway, usually you can get a whole bike with a clean title for sometime under $200, $300, depending how bad the bike is. As long as it's got a clean title, you're good to go. But what's going to happen, I know the bug gets you. Once you see the bike all put together and you get some other work, some parts polished up, I'll work on that gas cap for you today too. See what's going to happen. All these high spots are going to start to come through. And actually, this is one of the reasons I'll put a little extra time into this, because I think I cover myself in the fact that the day is going to come that Glenn wants to make this into a little street bike. And little bikes are always a lot of fun. To be always a lot of fun anyway. And this one in particular, I know is going to be like my 750. When Joe Roselli rode the 750, he was smiling around, and I was thinking, yeah, he probably hit the nail right on the head. They're just a lot of fun to ride. And let's face it, riding around on a super bike all day long, how much fun can that be? At some point in time, you go, yeah. See, the whole idea of me having a bike collection is I don't like to ride the same bike 2 days in a row. Now, some people do. Some people just want to have a bike to go drag race their buddies or whatever. But I like the experience of having a light bike, a fast bike, one that handles real good. The 750 is a really good handler. You know, we got a spot here I'm going to have to address. And I'll put a little bit of filler in there while I'm while I'm wet sanding the other side of the tank. But that's going to just, at the end of this, it'll need one more coat of primer, and then we could shoot some white. We'll actually probably get some paint on this today. Now this side of the tank, I was determined to get this as nice as I can. That took quite a bit of time. The rest of it was pretty easy. There's been some body work on this tank, but whoever did it did a pretty nice job. So, which makes our life just a little bit easier here. We're going to finish this up, get it ready for our next coat of prime. Now, as the weatherman correctly predicted, it looks like storms are coming in. Pretty typical for this. Nothing special going on here. So what we're going to try to do is at least get some of the painting on, so some of this can be drying. I'm guessing most of the body work on this is going to look like a brand new tank when it's done. Well, hopefully that primer will dry up in 15-20 minutes. We are trying like crazy to beat this weather, but the weather usually wins, to be honest. Yeah, that tank actually, you know, when I saw this in the red paint, I was thinking we're going to have a couple of days of body work. This panned out in just a few hours. It was really to our advantage to have it that way. Wow. It's going to make the final paint job on this that much easier now. Once this dries up, and I like to let it dry, in fact, maybe I'll go do some other work. I'd like that to be totally dry, and I could actually get a coat of white on that today. But you never know. See, because the sky is so variable today, and it could change in a heartbeat. I've gone downstairs on days like today, came out and it was pouring rain on my project. I'm always amazed at how sloppy everything gets, how dirty, filthy everything is, the water, the sandpaper. But there's always one, and I think we're just going to beat the rain here. We are just going to beat the rain. Look at those black clouds. Glenn, they're challenging me here. But look at what we got. Even before the rains came, before Noah's Ark was built. Wow. I think that tank is going to look... Glenn, you better go get a title, man. That is... Now remember, this is... We're doing a little bit of this as a Larry DeTuri tribute bike. I'm hoping I can still have one of those stickers that John made up for this project. Actually, we were going to do... The original plan was going to be we were going to do my Kawasaki in this one, which used to belong to Larry DeTuri and used to belong to Luciano. What our original intention was, we were going to make two matching track bikes. Mine became a street bike, and I still have the track bike. But I just have the feeling like we'll walk, like I've seen this movie before. And the truth is, I know because we did this before. You can find a bike in a salvage yard. You can buy just clean tiles, and it's so I'm excited about this. This really is. And this bike already has a full floater front brake, among other things, and we know it runs good. Luciano's used this bike on a track already, so we know this bike, there's some potential here. We don't know where this road is leading, but wherever it is, it's going to be a fun road to follow. I'm getting more excited every day I work on a bike. But there's one other sure test that we're not far from some nice warm weather. The fish usually... The water temperature goes up to about 52 degrees, which it is now, and the fish will start coming up and looking for food. And when they do, the first time I see fish eating in the spring, I think we could put those electric riding gear away, the electric jackets and all of that stuff, and we could start looking for some signs of spring here. Now, people in Florida, I guess, don't have to deal with this, but no more ice on the pond. Fish are taking a little nibbly-dibbly here. And here's the other sign of spring. Some of Karen's things are starting to make their rebirth for the new season. I see even the roses have some new stuff on them. Some new little leaves and buds. And that's what... This is my favorite rabbit. I got to share this story. I had this rabbit in front of the house. You notice one ear is JB welded on. The kids across the street, the teenage kids that go to school on Halloween, stole my rabbit. I couldn't find him. He was about 2 blocks away. And I brought him back. And I said, geez, he's heavy. Now this guy weighs about 50 pounds. So the next year on Halloween, they stole the rabbit, but the ear was there. They left the ear. They were carrying him by the ear. I guess his ear broke. But he was only across the street, so we retired him to the back of the property. It's time. I'm getting ready for spring. I know Karen is. We're all getting ready. And very soon, our yard will become a very enjoyable place to hang out. Now what I thought I'd do while that white paint is drying, get out my folder here. Spare stickers and decals. And boy, we have accumulated over the years from these projects. Now these are all of what I thought I wanted to see if I had the Larry DeTuri ones. These are all the Honda ones. Pretty much all of these have been made by John Pothier. Some have been made by, I can't think of it. Anyway, it's It's the sticker guy. Look at these from Vlad. This is from Vlad's. The ones that, we ought to put this on my bike. Now, the reason I'm showing this is because what happens is when you do a lot of these projects, you always have some extras. And in this case, now we have some extras that we can use if we want to. I'm going to lay these out because I don't know if Glenn's going to want to use them or... Wow, we really went to Kawasaki City here. I think Steve, these are ones Steve made, or Joe Roselli made. I'm not sure. They were for Luciano's project. I had originally made these fancy things for my track bike. Oh, we do have some of these. These are nice. These were made by John Pothier. We're definitely going to use these somewhere on the project. An extra big Kawasaki. Factory racing, that's always good to have. See, the thing is, a bike like this is going to need, here's Joe Roselli's decals. Some that somebody paid a lot of money for, some Ducati stuff. I bet these are worth a lot of money. Who knows? Probably Glenn's. Anyway, I'm just thinking of other things. See, I'm always trying to come up. Here's the Larry. These are the ones I'm looking for, the Larry Dettori. These are the ones. So I'm going to go through the rest of these decals here and try to get ones that when we do put the decaling on, they look appropriate for this model. But this paint job, I got to tell you something. This paint job, I don't want to be knocking this over, but Kawasaki race bikes of this era, they had these big giant panels of white, sometimes separated by a stripe. Sometimes they'd go down a fairing up and down on some of the triples. So I think this is such an appropriate paint job. And we really can modernize it a little bit, but it's really going to have a classic look when it's done. Now, in other words, the time I have while I'm waiting for that to dry, I can pull this back masking. I want to see how this is going to give us a final look on this part, because this is another part we have to do all the decaling on. Mark had told me he's getting back from Maryland this weekend. Maybe he's going to be able to spare an hour here because I need him to set a lot of the decaling that's going on here. Now, again, I don't have a real preference for it, but I think, you know, his need to make this look as correct as possible, I think he's got a better vision of that than I have. I'm more inclined to just make things more custom and more to my vision, so I don't want to do that on this project for Mark, since this is really a very rare book. I don't even think I've ever seen another one. But all besides the point. Mark being a pro mechanic, I'm sure he's going to do the mechanical part of it perfect. We want to do our part of it perfect. And those John Pothier decals, as always, and John made most of them that are in that envelope. Turbo Steve's been making up some decals for Mark. Other people have contributed things they've had. Glenn has contributed some stuff. So, and that's what's nice about doing these kind of 18 projects. Remember, this stripe has to bend around the corner, which is always a little bit of a nuisance. Now, one of these panels needed some little repair work, so I can even think about doing that. Little touch-ups. There's always little touch-ups. Now there's tiny little spots like this I'm going to touch up with a brush. See where the paint just bled under the tape there? But there's a little spot up here. I'll touch these up with a brush. Now here's the one problem I did have. Where this paint here crazed, and usually that's from any combination of old paint bleeding through underneath, softening up. We're going to just mask this whole thing off. I'm going to try to mask it off on both sides. Hit this with sandpaper. And remember that thing we did with the airbrush yesterday on a Kawasaki? Re-airbrush that side. And I think we can just get that out of the way while we're waiting for, we're waiting for this tank to dry up. But boy, that's going to be nice. Now, I don't know why, but I had a little nightmare in the time this was drying that I don't know why, that I did one of these backwards, but it looks like they're both right. Or they're both wrong, I don't know. We'll find out when Mark gets here, back from Maryland. So in a blink of an eye, it becomes a disgusting rainy day. And it's wonderful that we got that white paint on. and that it's drying up like a brand new gas tank. Boy, what a miserable day. Oy, oy, oy. And it looks like we're gonna have some more of this. Well, that's the way it goes. I guess that's the way it is here in northern Jersey. Now, I think it's worth spending the extra time considering how nice this is looking here, and considering we got to wait out the rain. I'll get this coat color sanded, and you can see it'll pick up all of the high spots. I still want to put one more coat of white on because I want the white to be white to contrast against that very bright neon Kawasaki green, which is going to be the calling card of this bike one way or another, along with some pretty nice tricky graphics, I hope, by the time we're done with it. But this is what I try to do on every day, is try to just use the day that's available. You know, and obviously if we had $1 million spray booth and we had a Steven Spielberg cameras that don't pick up wind noise and the latest in GoPro technology and everything, well, then sometime the fun wouldn't be there. Sometime you miss the fun when it gets too high tech, or too expensive, or complicated. You see, I can see there's some high spots on here that I'm glad I'm addressing this now. But before I put the next coat of white on this, I want to pick up every single high spot so that that next coat of white just goes on like glass. And also it serves another purpose. It lets the decals lay down nice and flat instead of having all little ridges and ripples and whatever. Now, there's plenty of little spots on here that need addressing. And it's always better to do these early on. The earlier on you can do it in a paint job, the better. So it's an hour later. We got about an hour of no rain in between the raindrops. Got our next coat of white on. That color sanding definitely paid off. It looks like we've got all of the bodywork addressed and taken care of. We'll be ready. The next step on this job is going to be to get some better weather. And probably we'll be doing it tomorrow. Will be to lay out a period correct paint job. And a period correct paint job. See, well, let me go out to the garage and make my point. Now I'm going to have to start thinking about the paint job for Glenn's gas tank, but I've designed a lot of paint jobs from scratch. This just happens to be one of them. What I call it, of course you can call it whatever you want. In a case like this, on an RD, you could paint it exactly like the factory painted it, or make a mimic of one of the Kenny Roberts replicas. But I wanted to have one that was totally unique, that was only a one of a kind. So I designed this from scratch. Now, of course, we're going to try to do the same thing for Glenn. We're not copying anything. In the case of any of the bikes, the Kawasaki, for instance, I want it to be unique, but I want it to be period correct. So what I'm saying is, here's what wouldn't be a correct. I'm going to take this one step further. When I bought the FZR, and granted, I got it for almost no money, the guy had put a $2,000 flame paint job, painted it like a Harley. Now, you know, I like Harleys too, and they look great with their flames and skulls and girls with teeth missing and stuff, but I don't want it on my bike. You know, for me, and I like the Ferrari theme because it was simple. I had built model planes that mimicked Ferraris. I have friends that have Ferraris, John Cafaro for one, among others. But when I designed, and I'm acting like I'm a great designer, of course I'm not, but to get these to be period correct. Now there is no Suzuki with that paint job. You know, I wanted to get it, and getting the stripe on the fender to match the stripe on the tank, to correctly mimic that shape that picks up the tail section with the right angle. This stuff looks a lot easier than it is. On the Kawasaki, the same thing, that stripe under the seat, the stripe on the tank, all of these things have to kind of, I don't know, in a very loose way, they mimic something. And of course, the important thing is they need to be period correct. Now, Rob's bike, the Kawasaki, I can't picture this with flames or with an inappropriate color, like an example is Vince's BMW was painted Hayabusa orange or something. Well, we took care of that already. But even at the end of it, of course, it's all in the eye of the beholder, and it doesn't really matter. If you like a pink Yamaha R1, well, there's no reason not to go for it. But I think most of my friends, they kind of cherish the idea that the bike is period correct and it's also unique, and that's what we're striving for. It's a one of a kind, but when you look at it, yeah, Yamaha could have made that bike. Maybe they made it and I just missed it the month they reviewed it in the magazine or something like that. Or maybe they came out with this color green. Kawasaki has every color green. You can go get any color green and find one of their race bikes that matches it. But those from the era of Glenn's bike, from that era, those bikes had Kawasaki green. We don't have Kawasaki green. It's like a neon green. This isn't a Kawasaki green, but it mimics that. And when you do that and you do it well, I think it looks pretty neat. And as long as, if it's your bike and you like it, and it seems like Glenn likes it, and I like it, I'm not sure what everybody else likes, but I know it's a lot harder to do it than it is to dream it. So that'll be the next challenge we have, is to lay out that paintwork. And as I say that, I didn't even think of this until right now. As I say that, here's a perfect example. Mark gave me this poster for the garage. This is a period correct paint job. Look at this. Now, and we've reversed this. We've made it white and blue, but it's blue and white. And needless to say, if Glenn ever pulls the wheels to change tires, we can throw a quick coat of gold paint on them. And this would really be a period correct bike. But I think it'd be cool. And, you know, since we're not trying to please anybody, and we're not looking for, we're not looking for this girl to come over and give us a big hug, we can pretty much do what we want. And that's the fun of motorcycling. You can have a free hand, a free paintbrush, and a palette, and paint whatever makes you happy. Now, just to be safe, I ended this day putting on a third coat of white. Actually, the third coat even over the little repair areas we went through, because I know it's not really bright and sunny. And when it's bright and sunny and you don't have that third coat of white on, kind of dies. That third coat makes it pop. One of our ancillary projects today we're going to try to work on for Karen. This is one of the oil paintings she makes. She goes to art class, of course. And we have these hanging all over the house, of course. But one of the things we want to do, well, she thought this would look better with a gold leaf frame. So we're going to try to get some gold paint on there, or try to antiquize it or something. I don't know what yet, but we'll see what we can come up with. So the way this works out, let me just show this, because this is one of Karen's little pet projects. You want to have that antique gold look. This is one of her craft paints. And then what you do is you spray it on, and while it's still wet, you take a rag with some acetone and just wipe it like a microfiber, which she did. And now she has a, well, it's supposed to be an antique looking frame. Now what we do, she's actually got a picture that she oil painted for Glenn. This is not it, of his front yard. And we're going to have to make a custom frame for it, of course, but this is one of the things she loves to do, these craft projects, and maybe I could get her to paint some motorcycles. I'm not sure. This is Karen's little collection of oil paintings that she's made from her classes. Just thought I'd show these up. Time to show off. This is actually a picture Najat took, a photograph. She made an oil painting of the photograph. A place we've been in Europe. This is an oil painting of our house, of the London Bridge.
And what hospital?
Different places that we've been.
This is Karen.
So, and they're probably calling her, this is our favorite one, the one in Kiji here.
Yes.
And soon to be added to our collection. I think that really came out nice.
I spoke to Dr. Matenda this morning.